Dragon Lord, written by Avril Sabine. Dedication. For my oldest son, who told me I needed to write a story with dragons. Here it is, as ordered. Book description. In a world ruled by those who own dragons, it is almost impossible to change your station in life. Fen is an orphan with a short life expectancy and no hope for the future. In the process of trying to steal a dragon for his master, Fen's life looks like it's going to become even shorter. He's faced with a difficult decision. Should he risk everything, including his blood boiling in his veins, for the chance of a future, or remain with his corrupt master? Chapter 1. Fen huddled under a damp bush. The steady drip of moisture from the leaves trickled down his back. He drew his arms in tight against his ribs and held his clasped hands at his mouth so he could breathe warmth on them. After pulling the grimy woolen cap down to cover his ears, he went back to breathing on his hands. He had brown eyes, a slightly crooked nose, and his warm cotton shirt, patched until it had been thrown in the rubbish, did nothing to keep him from shivering. All that kept him in the cold drizzle was the thought of what would happen if he returned to Roan empty-handed. A shiver went through him at that thought, one that had nothing to do with the damp night. The door Fen watched opened and two men came out with a lantern. The door closed behind them and they sauntered past the front of the windowless stone building, disappearing around the corner. Once the men were out of sight, Fen slowly counted to 10. Exactly as Roan had told him. Crawling out from under the bush, he tried to straighten. A leg cramp made him buckle and he bit back a gasp. He needed the muscle, his forehead pressed against his knee. He closed his eyes and clenched his teeth in an effort to stay quiet. The pain ebbed away. He took a deep breath and warily rose. After a glance around, he hurried to the building. There was very little moonlight, but enough to see more than shadows. Enough to see the door wasn't quite shut. Fen stared at it. He began to chew on his lip, frowning as he tried to decide what to do. The door should be locked. He took a step away from the door. Stopped. His back could almost feel Roan's walking stick land across it. He had to go forward. As his hand reached to push against the door, Fen reminded himself of one of the other orphans Roan had taken in. The one who hadn't risen after Roan had used his walking stick on him. He'd been dumped in the river with no one to care what happened to him. Fen slipped inside the building, pulled the door shut, and glanced around. Lamps hanging from the ceiling gave off a soft glow of light. Fen stared at them. He'd heard of wizard lamps before but had never seen them. They gave off light but no heat, and wouldn't burn anything down if they were knocked over. There was a lot to burn down. Straw was scattered over the floor and on the raised wooden boxes. Some of the boxes had large eggs nestled around a heat stone. Something else Fen had only ever heard of. He stepped forward. Dirt-streaked fingers hesitantly reached out to touch the heat stone. He snatched his fingers back at the last second, forcing his mind to the job at hand. At the end of the room was a rock wall with a metal door set in it. This was where Fen needed to go. Roan had said the place would be fireproof. He'd never heard of stone or metal catching fire, unless magic was involved. Fen looked around. Nothing but very large eggs. No one was inside. He shrugged. Who knew how servants of wealthy people thought? If he owned this place, he'd make sure it was always locked up real good. He moved forward, more confident now he was out of the rain and no longer shivering. The building was warm from all the heat stones. He considered stealing one but knew Roan would take it from him. Roan warned each kid he took in that they could only stay with him until they were 15 or 16. After that, they were on their own. Even though he didn't know his exact age, he recognized the signs. He didn't want to do anything to make Roan throw him out any sooner. He wasn't ready to strike out on his own. All he had was a couple of coins, but that wouldn't be enough to help him survive. The metal door swung open easily and Fen stepped into the room. The floor was heated granite, and the sudden warmth on Fen's bare feet sent goosebumps up his arms. He rubbed them and moved into the room. There was a scattering of straw on the floor that looked like it had been walked in from the other room, but that was all the flammable material he could see. The room was divided by rock walls and metal doors, which reached to Fen's chest height to create a stable. He moved to the first one, peering inside at the tumble of limbs. 4 gray-colored dragons lay together, their wings tucked in against their bodies and their arms and legs sprawled out like a basket of kittens that had fallen asleep playing. But they were much bigger than a kitten, more like a mid-sized dog. Grey dragons were just what Roan wanted. A new hatchling still not come into its color. Fen started to open the metal door into the dragon enclosure when a sound made him freeze. "What are you doing in my stable?" Fen spun around. "You're a girl." For a moment he'd expected someone older. He could outsmart another kid. The girl tossed brown hair, tilting her head so she could look down her pointed nose. Blue eyes glared at him, her hands on her hips. "And you're just a boy." She wrinkled her nose. "A filthy one at that. Don't you ever take a bath?" "What for?" Fen looked confused. "You didn't answer my question." "And who are you?" "Who are you?" Fen demanded. "I asked first. Besides, I'm meant to be here and you don't look like any stable boy I've ever seen. At least they bathe once a week." "It was cold outside, I came in to get warm." Fen put a whine in his voice in the hope the girl would feel sympathetic. "Sure." The girl drew the word out. "I'm not stupid. There are grey dragons in that pen. Everyone knows you can only steal grey dragons, since you can't blood hunt them until they change color. Even I know a dragon's useless until it changes color and can be tracked. I'm no thief. I'm an orphan. It's cold out there." "What's your name, dragon thief?" Fen started to move away from the dragons. "I'm cold and starving. I haven't eaten since last night." Both comments were true. Roan believed a hungry boy was more anxious to do his job and return for a feed. "Take one more step and I'll alert the guards. And don't think I can't. The right word, even whispered, will set off alarms all over the place." Fen eyed her carefully. She had to want something from him. There had to be a way to use that against her. "Then why haven't you?" "Because I think we can help each other." "How?" His eyes narrowed. "And why would you help me?" "I haven't decided if I will yet. First I need to know your name and then I need to know why you want a dragon." Fen sighed. Roan had told him it'd be the easiest night's work he'd done since he'd taken him in. Nothing was ever simple in life. "I guess I could always give you a name. It's better than calling you boy or dragon thief, or even scavenger. Now you don't look much like a Selig. I have a cousin Selig, and he's much bigger than you. You're rather scrawny, aren't you?" Fear started to be replaced by annoyance. "Don't you ever shut up?" "Shush, this is a tough decision." The girl glared at him again. "Oh, for peace before you talk me to death. It's Fen. My name's Fen." The girl smiled. "Now that wasn't too hard, was it? And yes, I can be quiet." She flashed him another smile. "When I get my own way. Now, why do you want the dragon?" Fen shook his head, muttering "spoilt brat" under his breath. "My master wants it." "What for?" "How the hell would I know? He'd rap me across the head with his walking stick and yell at me to get out of his business." The girl sighed. That doesn't sound good. I don't know what'd be worse. She frowned and then suddenly looked at Fen thoughtfully. What would you swear to be able to take a dragon tonight? Anything. A blood oath. Fen went pale under his layer of dirt. Well, his mind quickly tried to find a way out of the situation. We don't have a wizard to do the spell. My father has parchment that's been spelled for blood oaths. Will you sign one? What's the oath? You'll protect the dragon from all harm, even to putting your own life in danger.